B'Shus Mardasra, we're continuing our share in Dishu Bahalacha. We're holding on the bottom of Kuf Pei Beis, Amid Beis, Siman Shin Lamed Zayin, Sif Beis. Before we start the Halacha, we'll just continue a little bit in Pirkei Avos. So we're at the end of the first Mishnah, Parak Aleph, Mishnah Aleph. So the last one of the three things that the Anshe Knesset Agdola said, we said, Hey Momer Shlosh Dvarim. The last one was Asu Siag LaTorah, that you should make a fence around the Torah. You should make a safeguard around the Torah to prevent you from transgressing anything in the Torah Kedosha. So it's an interesting thing. I went shopping this afternoon, and I went to the Kyle store of Borough Park, and there's been a thing from the CDC not to buy any romaine lettuce. So I see that the kosher brands are all selling. Some of them apparently they say that they don't buy from the open market. It's only what they produce themselves, and they didn't have any incidents of E. coli from their own produce. So the national recall doesn't apply to them. One of the other ones said that they did testing, or whatever that means, I don't know, but whatever it is. But it was interesting. How many people got sick in this E. coli outbreak? The last number that I heard, which was a little time ago, was I think approximately 40 cases. And that's from Canada through the United States, about 40 cases. So what kind of population are we dealing with? 40 people out of how many? Right? The United States is what, 300 million people? United States? What? 340? 40 people. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't take it seriously, but what struck me was like this. We deal, let's say, with the problem of bugs in vegetables, right? Could you imagine if somebody had a head of lettuce and somebody told him, you have to check the head of lettuce very, very well, because if you don't check the head of lettuce well, there might be E. coli in there. How well would they check that head of lettuce before they eat it? Or would they just say, you know what, there might be E. coli in the lettuce, chuck the lettuce. Now, if you have the lettuce and you might have bugs in the lettuce and you might eat the bugs in the lettuce, how many lavin daraisa could you be over? And what damage does that do to your neshama? The sensitivity, to have the sensitivity of the damage to our nefesh, of the damage to our neshama, anytime that there's a risk of a chet, anytime that there's a risk of an avera, if we would have that sensitivity, the concept of asu siag l'Torah, to make a safeguard so that chas v'shalom you shouldn't come to be over something. It's like I remember the Yeshiva Zatzal, Rav Moshe, I'm not talking about a public Erev, like a citywide Erev or a town Erev, but in camp, by us. In camp, we had an Erev in camp. And Rav Moshe would walk, and even though there was an Erev, and it was an Erev that he trusted, it was an Erev that he knew, so he was willing to use the Erev, but he carried his handkerchief in his hand. He wouldn't put his handkerchief in his pocket, because he didn't want to come to get used to putting a handkerchief in the pocket, because if you get used to putting a handkerchief in the pocket, he might put a handkerchief in the pocket on Shabbos on the Lower East Side where there is no Erev. Now, the concept of being careful, just to make sure that you shouldn't come to something. Same thing, I remember, this is not exactly the same thing, but he didn't have an air conditioner in his study on the Lower East Side until the last years, when the doctors, after he had his heart condition was very serious, so they told him that it was too much of a strain on his heart, the heat. So they told him he has to have an air conditioner. Till then, he didn't have an air conditioner in his study. He made sure that the yeshiva had air conditioning in the Medrash, but he didn't have an air conditioner in his study. And he kept saying, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it. Why? Because what'll be, I'll have it and I'll get used to it, and then there'll be a blackout, and it won't work, and I won't be able to learn. Or even if I'll learn, the learning won't be the same learning because I'll be uncomfortable. It's like this, I never had it. I'm not used to it. This is what I'm used to. So he didn't want to take the risk of getting himself into a situation where he wouldn't be able to do what he did until now. He wouldn't be able to learn the same way. And the truth is that that's the definition whenever we see in halacha a bal nefesh. We see bal nefesh yachmir. What does that mean, a bal nefesh? We all have a nefesh. We're all a bal nefesh. Every one of us is a bal nefesh because we all have a nefesh. So what are we calling this person a bal nefesh? We're calling him a bal nefesh because this is somebody who cares about his nefesh. Bal nefesh yachmir means somebody who is concerned with the health of his nefesh. Somebody who goes the extra mile to protect his nefesh, that's what we call a bal nefesh. So then halacha they'll say, bal nefesh yachmir. You're very concerned about your nefesh? If you're very concerned about your nefesh, this is a place where it makes sense to be noyeg a chumrah. So I think that's one of the things we have to take away from the Anshe Knesset Agdola saying, asu siyag l'Torah. What makes you make a siyag l'Torah is to have the sensitivity of what it means, chas v'shalom, to transgress something, to be over on something, to be truly worried about it. That spurs us to make a siyag. Okay, now we'll go into the halacha.
Two quick questions.
Yeah.
Number one, what happened? You know, the Yiddish guys over there, whatever, they didn't have to worry about their romaine lettuce. They were able to eat and they got
So
gas.
I know two of the brands, Positive and Kosher Garden, I think it's called, something like that. What they say is, they say that a national outbreak doesn't pertain to them because they don't buy lettuce on the open market. They only produce their own lettuce. Or you see, if you go to a lot of the brands that are out there, they're buying lettuce on the open market and then they're repackaging it. So if there's an outbreak in some field in Arizona,
The lettuces that they get from here to there, they put on the sticker.
right,
And all
right, but positive and kosher garden don't do that. They grow their own lettuce, they package their own lettuce. Right, and Bodek.
I'm sure there has to be in the grocery side those Michigan vegetarian.
Well, I'm sure there are.
They have, also-
I'm sure there are. And
Number one. Number two, I don't understand. We could be all Nazirim. We don't have to do nothing. We don't have to have alpha and all this. In fact, you know, we don't have to have flush toilet too. Let's go back to the good old days. You know, the way it used to be 100 millions years ago, where we didn't have all the technology. We didn't have lights either. Maybe the light was going to go out. You should have a candle and all of that.
what does a candle help you?
Who's-
What does a candle help you?
No, you got your
Maybe the
own
candle-
candle.
maybe the
Nobody
candle-
used to this.
maybe the candle will go out.
You know, you get another one, you put it on
It's
instead of this.
obviously there's
Chokmah
a
is to learn and to get adjusted and to move ahead and to condition yourself to the new stuff and keep going and figure out new ideas and new conditions and new ways to do the other stuff.
let me tell you something.
Well,
I'm
that
not
is
saying
the old days.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying
Take a medicine.
I'm not saying that we should all learn. I'm not saying that we should all learn by candlelight, but I will tell you that by Sandy, I had to prepare the daf by candlelight. Ooh, what's that hard?
Right, but Hashem is moving the world ahead.
I don't know. I'm not sure what your point is. I'm not sure what you're trying to say.
That we should get used to the new technology and new everything.
Yeah,
The
but
world moves ahead.
You're right.
Hashem
Nobody.
did it special.
Ramosha
He's got geniuses.
didn't say don't use electricity. But what he said was, I don't want to get used to having air conditioning because then when I don't have it, I'm going to be missing it. That's all.
You saw the letter of sent to Rav Malkiel Kotler.
About the vaccinations, I heard about it. I didn't see it.
Like that,
What
so
a
it's also about percentage.
yeah, it's such a crazy thing, this vaccination business. All right, we got to start halacha. Let's go. Okay, Kuf Pei Beis Amid Beis. We're on the bottom line of the Mechaber. We're starting Sif Cotton Beis. This is a halacha that's also very negei l'maisa. Kuf Pei Beis Amid Beis. Siman Shin Lamed Zayin Sif Beis. Now, I'll just caution you at the outset. Don't get scared from what we're going to see right away at the beginning, because at the end we're going to come to a biur halacha that's going to be negei l'maisa. So don't jump to conclusions. But the Mechaber says as follows: Asur lechabed habayis. It is forbidden to sweep the floors in the house, ela im kain hakarka merutzef, unless the floor that you're sweeping is tiled or paved or covered over with some kind of hard surface, and it is not earth. It's not an earthen floor. Now, the problem over here of being mechabed habayis, this is one of those sugyas where there are machlokes in the Rishonim, and then within the Rishonim don't explain themselves very, very clearly. So when you get through the Rishonim and you get through the Achronim, it seems there are three potential isurim in sweeping a floor, an earthen floor. We'll start with an earthen floor. The three potential isurim are as follows. You have Rishonim that say that the problem is being mezes afar. You're being mezes afar mimakaimai. When you sweep an earthen floor, you're going ahead and you're moving the dust around. What's the problem of moving the dirt around? That the Rishonim don't say. They say you're moving the dirt around. So what's the problem? So the Achronim talk about these two potential problems. One potential problem is that the dirt is muktzah. We know eitzim and avonim are muktzah machmas gufay. These are things that don't have a use on Shabbos. So you're going ahead and you're moving dirt. Dirt is muktzah. Maybe there's a problem of tiltal muktzah. Now, if that's the problem, it's certainly a derabanan. Another potential problem of mezes afar mimkaimai, that you're moving dirt around, is that when you move dirt around, sometimes what you're doing is you're making actually little holes in the ground, right? You have a clump of earth and you sweep it away, you uproot a clump of earth, now you have a hole. So that would be a problem of you're making a guma, right? What's the asiyas guma, right? Which is a told of either a told of chayrish or a told of boina, depending on in a house. Sometimes they call it boina.
It's covering, it's filling it.
Right, it would be sicer. Steer is part of boina. So these are, if that's the problem, that's also a derabanan. Why is it a derabanan? Because you have no interest in the guma. You're not trying to make a guma. So at best, it's a malacha sheidah tzricha legufa. So again, that would also be a derabanan. Then, besides the problem of mezes afar mimkaimai, the other problem that they talk about is ashvuye gumais. The opposite of making a guma is filling up a hole. Filling up a hole would also be a tilde of chayrish or a tilde of baina. Now, that also would be a derabanan. Why would that be a derabanan? So over there they say it would be a derabanan because it's klachayad. You're not doing it with your hands. You're not going ahead and you're not even using a shovel, which is the implement that would generally be used. You're going ahead and you're sweeping with a broom, so they call that binyan klachayad. So here you have three potential isurim. All of them would be derabanans. What? Well, why would it be of the chayil? What, sweeping? I know, but the mode of the chayil is usually something that has to do with the mode of conduct. It is the way you do something. Like we said, gathering the apples out in the yard is an uvda d'chayil because it looks like you're doing business.
If you use a different type of a broom on Shabbos, then it would be okay?
Well, I don't think sweeping would ever be considered an uvda d'chayil because it's not something that has a lot of tercha. It's not something that's difficult to do. It doesn't look like a business activity. It doesn't look like a construction activity. So I don't think there would ever be an issue of uvda d'chayil on sweeping. So these are the three potential isurim that they talk about. Based on these potential isurim, so the Mechaber brings down over here what we just read is the Shitas Rambam. The Rambam says also lechaber abayis. You're not allowed to do it on an earthen floor. Elim kena karka merutzef. If you're talking about something that's tiled over, you're talking about something that has like what we have, whether it's a wooden floor or a tile floor or whatever it is, but it's not an earthen floor. So then the Rambam says, the Rambam doesn't say that right, but the Maggid Mishnah says, the time of the Rambam is, there's no makom to make a gzeira. There's nothing to aser if it's a dirt floor. Now you'll ask me, maybe we should make a gzeira and we should aser a tiled floor, a finished floor, to an earthen floor, that if we let you do it on a covered floor, you might come to do it on an earthen floor. So the Maggid Mishnah says that the Rambam wasn't interested in such a gzeira. He didn't want to hear about such a gzeira because he said that sweeping the house is a tzarech hayoim. People don't live in a dirty house. So it's a tzarech hayoim to clean the house. We're not going to make such a gzeira. Okay. You know what? Let's do the Mishnah Berurah on this shita before we go even weiter. So on Kuf Pei Beis, Amid Beis, all the way at the bottom line, the Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Vav says lechabed habayis. What's the problem? So first, the Mishnah Berurah says, "Temezes afar mimkaimai," because you're moving dirt out of its place. Now, the Mishnah Berurah over here doesn't explain what the problem with that is, but what I told you, the Mishnah Berurah, the Chavetz Chaim says in the Sha'ar Tzion, he brings down these two possible problems, either muktzah or ashvui gumais or asiyas aguma. Then the Mishnah Berurah continues on the top of the Mishnah Berurah in Kuf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph. Gam, also, there's another potential problem. Mashva hagumais b'chibudai, that when you sweep, you're going to sweep dirt into any holes that are there, and shemismalan agumais shebabayis me'afar v'ebinyan. You're going to fill up these holes, and that'll be a problem of binyan. Even though you certainly don't have kavana to fill up the holes when you're doing this, also the psik ratio. Still, the ones that answer this say that it's also because it's a psik ratio. When you sweep dirt, you automatically level the ground. That's what you're doing. When you're brushing it over with a broom, you're going to level it. And by doing that, you're giving mashva gumais, so it's a psik ratio of binyan. V'yeshaimim, and still others say, the chayshina nshema mitach tedasai lechabed or leyapli sakarka. Once you get busy with sweeping and working over there, yishkach, you're going to forget the yashva hagumais b'miskaven, and you're actually going to go ahead and level the floor intentionally. Now the truth is, I didn't chop this until I learned this over again, and then I realized we're not used to the concept of living in a house with an earthen floor. And by the way, the Chavetz Chaim had a house with an earthen floor. So the Chavetz Chaim's house in Radin, when the Chavetz Chaim who wrote this, his house had an earthen floor. Now I was thinking about it. If you have an earthen floor, right, then leveling your floor is probably a job that you do every now and then, right? You're from moving furniture around, from moving the chairs, you're going to get little holes and little indentations in the ground, which over time are going to become both unsightly and also uncomfortable. So when you have a dirt floor, leveling the floor is a job that you do. So therefore, what the Mishnah Berurah says here makes a lot of sense, that there are those that say, once you get busy sweeping the floor, you might forget yourself and go on to do the rest of the job. And that is to level the floor, and you might actually come to do it b'mechavin. The Mishnah Berurah continues in Ais Katan Zayin that according to the Rambam, there's a caveat. This is only usher if you're dealing with an earthen floor. Elim ken merutzif, but if it's tiled over, bein ba'avanum ubein b'krushim, whether it's tiled with stone tiles or it's planked over with wooden planks, then there's no isser, because then there's no room to make an isser. There's no problem if it's tiled over. So that's the first shita. That's the shita Rambam. Now if we go back up to the Mechaber on the top line, Kuf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, he continues. Now he brings down the sheet of the Rif. V'yesh matirin afilu eina merutzif. There are those that say that they're matir everything. You're even allowed to sweep an earthen floor. You're zikr allowed to sweep a tile floor, but even an earthen floor you could sweep. Let's go down into the Mishnah Berurah, he's cutting ches. Afilu eina merutzif, it's mutter. Why? The Svira Lahu, because the Rif held, and these other Rishonim hold, the Gam Bazeh Einoi Vadai Sheyashve Gumais. It's still not a psik ratio that you're going to be mashve gumais. And since it's a davar sheina miskaven, you're not planning on being mashve gumais. If it's not a psik ratio, it's mutter. And these held it's not a psik ratio. V'loi gara me ributs to shari b'sef aleph. They look at it being the same as what we discussed yesterday in Sef Aleph, that you're allowed to spray water over an earthen floor to hold the dust down. And we said that that's not a psik ratio of being mashve gumais. So this is also not a psik ratio. Now, that only takes care of the potential problem of being mashve gumais. We said that there are other potential problems. There's a problem of muktzah. So says the Mishnah Berurah, the gam lemezes afar mimkaimai, as far as the other problem of moving the dirt, and by moving the dirt, you might fill up existing holes. Gam ke lo chayish. They weren't worried about that either. About making holes. When a person sweeps the earthen floor, what is he sweeping? he's sweeping the loose dirt that's on the surface. You're not sweeping the packed down earth that's below the surface. You're sweeping the loose stuff that's on top. Now, when you make a hole in loose dirt, it doesn't last. The earth is all crumbly, so you make a little hole, and then right away it fills up again with other dirt. So over there's not a problem of a shvuye gumais when you're dealing with loose dirt. So we wouldn't worry over there about digging a hole. Now, he doesn't say right over here, but the problem of muktzah is also not a problem, they say, because the muktzah problem of moving the dirt, how are you moving the dirt? You're moving the dirt with a broom. You're moving the dirt with a broom, that's tiltul min hatzad. And it's tiltul min hatzad l'tzarech Shabbos. Tiltul min hatzad l'tzarech Shabbos is mutter. So they say that the muktzah problem was also not a problem. So here we have, just to wrap up, here we have another shita that it's a mutter to sweep even an earthen floor because it's not a psik reisha to fill holes. It's not a problem that you're going to make holes because it's loose dirt. It's not a problem with muktzah because it's tiltul min hatzad. So this shita holds even an earthen floor you're allowed to sweep.
Why is this guy sweeping his house?
It's a good question.
Because he's got other dirt, he's got papers, he's got other things.
Right.
So he's never discovered to move the ground anyway, because if there's no paper, there's nothing out of it. He's 100% moving up from place to place, which he shouldn't be doing. There's no reason.
Okay.
He has to have something else there.
Right, so let's say there's garbage there, right?
So then, if he has something else, he's not discovered to the offer, whatever.
Right, well, that's what we're saying. He's not mechavan to the offer.
He's not interested in the offer, he's interested in a piece of paper.
And therefore?
What?
And therefore?
It may not be a psik ratio what he's doing, you know.
Well, okay, but that's what the Riv says. The Riv says it's not a psik ratio.
For one thing, it doesn't matter.
No, but if it's a psik ratio, it doesn't matter.
What?
If it's a psik ratio, it doesn't matter.
I understand. So is there a psik ratio?
The Riv held it's not a psik ratio.
I'm interested in the paper, or whatever.
I say, but what you're interested in doesn't matter if it's a psik ratio.
I understand.
Right, so the Riv says it's not a psik ratio.
Psik ratio or not a psik ratio?
That's they seem to be arguing whether it's a psik ratio or not.
Why is it tilted on the side? It's the normal way you clean.
It doesn't matter. It's still tiltum and atzad. Anytime you don't handle it with your hands, when you move something that's muktzah, you have a ma'aseh shahaya. You have a circular saw on your bed, and you want to go to sleep, and you take the bed and you toss it over, and you knock it on the floor. That's tiltum and atzad. I know, but I was just saying tiltum and atzad. Whenever you handle something through something else, that's tiltum and atzad. Even if it's the normal way to do it, that's always tiltum and atzad. Tiltum and atzad just means that you're not handling it directly. You're handling the item that's muktzah through an intermediary object. That's tiltum and atzad. Okay. Hagah. Now comes the Ramah. V'yesh machmirin. There are those shitas that are machmir, and this is the shitas hari. V'yesh machmirin afilu b'merutzef. There are those that are machmir even by a tiled floor, even by a floor that's covered over. They are not allowed to sweep it. This is Torah b'shem Ari, Mordechai reish perik alakelim, v'Rabbeinu Yerucham chalak, v'Smag, Sefer Truma, v'chein noyagin v'ein l'shanos. Says the Ramah, this is the way with noyag, and you shouldn't change it. Now this is going to be one of those rare cases where on the surface we don't follow what the Ramah says. The Ramah says over here, with noyag like this shita, not even to sweep a tiled floor, and with noyag that way, you shouldn't change it.
That's because in those days they had houses that didn't have it.
Oh.
So they made it clear.
Yeah.
But we don't have it.
You're right. You're right. So the Chavetz Chaim is going to say, there's a very long Bir Halacha here, and the Chavetz Chaim says in the Bir Halacha that when you're dealing in a locale, even forget where all of the houses have tile floors. He says even if roiv of the houses have tile floors, then there's no reason to be machmer. Now there's other potential problems that we're going to see, and that is you have to be careful what kind of broom you use, but this is also not negated to us much nowadays.
Why can't we use this logic to everything else also? Medications also, not prepared the way you use it, no, therefore we should allow it.
So the truth is that that's a valid question that you're asking. The question that you're asking is a very yesodistic question, which is when do you look at something and say that it doesn't apply, and when do you say that it does apply? It's a valid question, and I'm not going to answer it on 1 foot. But there are times that you say it, there are times that you don't. The cop-out answer would be that over here I'm not saying it, over here the Be'er Halacha is saying it. The Chavetz Chaim says it. But he himself, he's bringing it from others. He's bringing it from Achronim also. But there are rules as to when you say it and when not. But in any case, so the Be'er Halacha, I'll just read to you 2 lines here from the Be'er Halacha. He says, "Lefi zeh eila hachmer b'shekol batei ir merutzef." If all the houses in the city are tiled over, ubepratim niskaber abayis be'erev Shabbos. And certainly, if you sweep the house on erev Shabbos, so that makes even less of a problem of being mashve gumais. You already swept the floor. V'gam l'isser muktzeh lachish. You also don't have to worry about muktzeh. Echad mishum adikasav Rashba. The Rashba says a very interesting svara as far as worrying about muktzeh, that what you're moving around is muktzeh. Rashba says that's not a problem. The mutal of hanoisa mishum devik graf sharei. Any garbage that you sweep up off the floor has a din of a graf sharei. We always say that garbage you're allowed to take out. You're not mechuyev to live with garbage in front of you on Shabbos. So it's a graf. You don't have to worry about muktzah. So at the end of the day, the Chavetz Chaim says we're not worried about this. The Aruch HaShulchan says bizmanenu, b'mkaimenu, in our times in our houses where most people have tiled floors, we don't worry about it. I saw a very interesting brought down in the Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa from Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, where he says, how about if you have let's say my house. In front of my house, I have what are those called? Patio blocks, right? So I have blocks, I have a path, and then I have a sidewalk. I also have a dirt front yard, right? Are you allowed to sweep the patio in front of your house? Are you allowed to sweep the deck on the back of your house? That's not in the house. We're saying right now that if all the houses or most of the houses in the city are tiled, so we don't have this gzera. We don't say that we make a gzera merutzef otu sheina merutzef. But now once you're going outside the house there's plenty of places that are not merutzef. People have yards. So do you have to worry about it over there? So Rav Shlomo Zalman says that a patio or a porch in front of the house, in the back of the house, that's an extension of the house. And just like the house is not a problem, the patio is not a problem. Now how far you're going to take that, I don't know. To me, from what I read, it sounds like the path in front of your house, the patio in front of your house, the patio out your deck doors going out to the back. If you'll tell me that you have a deck like me, the first floor of my house, in the front of the house, it's street level. In the back of the house, it's like a second floor. So I have a nice deck. I would consider that an extension of the house. Now I go down the steps from the deck, and over there's a little patio that is surrounded on all sides by the backyard. Are you going to say that's an extension of the house? I don't know if you could say that's an extension of the house. To me, that already feels like you're in the backyard. And I don't know if you're going to be matir sweeping a paved area in the backyard. That sounds to me going too far. Because once you do that, you do the area next to it. I don't know. But anyway, in any case, a deck or a porch or a path, it seems is not a problem.
I have grass. I have, how do you call it? Like cement, like bark, and the rest of it is grass. Who sweeps the grass?
Usually, you would think not. Where this comes to, where this comes to with a problem? On Sukkot.
Exactly. That's
right.
what I'm talking about.
On Sukkot, it becomes a problem.
Because my sukkah is there, and I got things falling on the cement.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
No, but even there are people that have this sukkah. There are people that have this sukkah on a dirt patch, and then they really have a problem. And a lot of people don't know about it. They don't know this halach at all.
It's made a shape, whatever shape it is, and afterwards is the grass. But I have grass. I don't have sand. I don't have earth.
Right. Okay. Mishnah Berurah is cutting tests. Afilu b'merutzef. The Ramah had said some people are makri even b'merutzef. Bein ba'avonim, bein b'krushim, whether it's with stones or with wood. By the way, this that the Chavetz Chaim keeps on mentioning, bein ba'avonim and bein b'krushim. This is because of the styles of the floors that they made in those days, and they bring down halachic differences between stone and wood. And part of it is that the way they would lay it, So apparently the stone had more space between the stones than the wood planks did. And there's a thought process that if you're dealing with stones and you have significant amount of space between the stones, then maybe you have to worry about the space between the stones. That you're going to be mashvegumos in the earth that's over there, where with the planks you didn't have that. I didn't really go into it because it's not so negated to us. Afilu b'merutzif, bein ba'avanim, bein b'krashim, d'sviraluhu, the be'ein merutzif have a psik reisha. The reasoning of the re that the Ramah is based on is because he held that if you're dealing with an earthen floor, then it's a psik reisha, so it's aser. And if you're dealing with a tiled floor, gazrinon merutzif hatoina merutzif. We make a gzera merutzif hatoina merutzif. And like we're saying by us, we're not going to make that gzera because by us all of our houses are merutzif. V'ayin mebir halacha. Zok, yeah.
As I was going to say, let's say you have tiles, and in between the tiles, what do they call it?
Grout.
Grout, that's it. So, when you sweep and you have, let's say, dirt, whatever it is, sometimes you're missing a shtick of grout, you have to re-grout it.
Right.
Whatever it is, and when you do that, you know, it might be...
Ashviya gumais.
No.
Ashviya gumais.
Macular fractures.
Right, ashviya gumais. That's what it is. You're filling up holes. But it's not a psik reisha.
Right?
But it's not a psik reisha. It's not a psik reisha. Even if you're missing some grout, you're not going to tell me that you know 100% that when you sweep you're going to fill up that hole. So it's not psik reisha. Psik reisha is only if you know.
It's going to go there.
No, it's not. It's not a psik reisha. It's not a psik reisha.
That area, you go from this
No, because you don't know how much dirt. You don't know how much dirt there is on the floor, and you don't know when you sweep it how much dirt you're going to move over there. That's not a psik reisha. It's not a psik reisha. Tiled, paved, tiled. Ritzpah, ritzpah. Yeah, that's, yeah. Okay.
The ritzpah could also be a coal, a hot coal. A hot coal is ritzpah.
Yeah. Spelled how?
Same way.
With a pay? Reish tzadi pay hey? There's a hot coal? Ritzpah. Miu, the Ramah continues.
The Gemara. What's
Ritz-
it talking about? No?
Ritzpah?
A dog takes, how do you call it?
No.
And he runs from place to place.
Gachelas.
He says gachelet.
Yeah. Yeah. Kel shenot lacharara. You know, and
It's also happening.
Miu, the second line for the bottom, near the end of the line, in the Machab, in the Ramah. Miu al yedei eino Yehudi mutter. To go ahead and sweep, even an earthen floor. If you take a look right away in the Mishnah Berurah, he's cutting Yud. Al yedei eino Yehudi mutter. Hainu afilu b'sheina merutzif. This is so even if we're dealing with an earthen floor. Why? Tahahu eino miskavin rak lechabed abayis. Because the intent of the goy is to sweep the house. Vaftu psik reisha l'inyan agumais, even according to these shitas, who hold that the ashvuye gumais is a psik reisha, so it's also for a yid to do it because it's a psik reisha, mutter al yedei Yehudi. But a goy, you're allowed to have a goy do it. De ba'amira le'ena Yehudi, because when it comes to amira la'akum, loy kaptinun kulahai, we're not so machmer. The case over there is as follows. Very interesting case. What happens if you have a pot of food on Friday night it's done in legamri? It cooled off completely. And you want to reheat it. Now you don't have a way to reheat it. To ask a goy to go ahead and reheat it, can't do that. Doing a malach daraisi, can't do that. So what could you do? You could ask a goy. Let's say you have in the house not an oven that you have for cooking. You have a wood-burning furnace that's used to heat your house. And it's Friday night, and it's 20 degrees outside. And it's cold. Now, when it's cold, the halacha is you're allowed to ask a goy to go make a fire to heat up the house. Because cold is dangerous, people can get sick. So what you could do is, you have the furnace is not fired up. So you have a cold furnace. You have a cold pot of food. You ask a guy, do me a favor. Could you take the pot of food and put it on top of the furnace? Okay, nothing wrong with that. It's a cold furnace. So the guy takes the pot, puts it on top of the furnace. Now you ask a guy, could you do me a favor? It's cold in the room. Could you go fire up the furnace so we should have heat? Now the guy goes to fire up the furnace. Why is he firing up the furnace? He's firing up the furnace to make heat. Now you're allowed to ask him to fire up the furnace to make heat because that's mutter. But it's a psik reisha that when he fires up the furnace to make heat, he's also going to cook the pot. But that's okay.
Are we talking cooking or reheating in this case?
It's not in Legamri, so over there they're looking at it as cooking. I don't want to get into all the technicalities of Bishul, but that was a good catch. But what the Mishnah Berurah says over there is, you see from here that to ask a goy to do something that's a psik reisha, right? We're not allowed to do a davar she'eino miskaven, it's a psik reisha. But you're allowed to ask a goy to do a davar she'eino miskaven that's a psik reisha. Okay. Now let's just try to finish this up. Let's go a little bit further.
Yeah, but this is not considered a real situation.
These sheets hold it is a psik reisha.
No, I'm saying with the furnace, it might be.
Of course it's a real psik reisha.
Okay, so that feeling does not.
Of course it's a real psik reisha. You have a pot on top of a furnace, and you're firing up a furnace, you can heat up the food.
I think, in my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah.
That a psik ratio, it has to be connected to the jar. This is like you're bringing A and you're bringing B, and then you're saying that that causes.
Yaakov. You have a pot on top of a furnace. When you heat up the furnace, you heat up the food. It's a psik reisha.
I understand that, but a furnace is a furnace, and this is this.
But it's the malachi. You fire this up, you cook that.
And, if it's done through you carrying something, and it's there, that's the nature way of doing it.
That's not enough. Psik reisha just means that when you do this thing, you're definitely going to do that.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay, let's finish this up. Bottom line of the Ramah. V'chein al yidei beged oy matlis oy knaf avos hakalim. If you have a lightweight garment or a lightweight rag, a matlis is a rag, oy knaf avos, or the wing feathers of a goose, hakalim, that are very lightweight, ve'enoi mashve gumos. So these type of sweeping implements are not going to be mashve gumos. You have one of those feather dusters. You don't have to worry that the feather duster is going to be mashve gumos. So that's another way that it could be mutter to sweep. So the Mishnah Berurah says, Ois Yod Aleph, hakalim, ritzoiner loymar, what does the Ramah want to say? The kevan shehem kalim, since these implements are very lightweight, they're only going to move the surface dust. They can't move clumps of earth that are going to fill up holes. This is what the Ramah says in the Torah in the Darkei Moshe. You see from here, if you want to take the feather duster and you want to get very aggressive with the feather duster and you want to get down and move clumps of earth, obviously that you can't do. The point is that you're using the feather duster just to move the surface dirt. Says the Mishnah Berurah Eis Kat Yud Beis and Kufay Gimel Amud Beis, ve'enoi mashve gumos, says the Chavetz Chaim, v'alkein mutter afilei de merutzef. So this would be mutter even on an earthen floor. Va'afilu yesh pabayis klipe agoizim v'kayotze behem midvarim ha'asurim betiltel. Like Yankel said before, when you sweep a floor, it's not only dirt that you want to move the garbage on the floor. So you have pistachio nutshells on the floor, and you have wrappers on the floor. What?
To move the dirt for no reason at all.
Right. So va'afilu yesh pabayis klipe agoizim v'kayotze midvarim ha'asurim betiltel. This type of garbage is muktzah, you're not allowed to move it. Afilu hachi mutter lechabed. This is not a problem. Tahavel l'didei graf sharei. Like we said before, it's a graph, so it's not muktzah. Kasav v'sefer kakel Shabbos. Tehu adin mamash karin barsht. I don't know what this is. Harakim. Oh, that's what it is?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Mamash karin barsht, a brush. Harakim, that has soft bristles. Wow, what language is that? That's Yiddish? A brush in Yiddish is a barsht?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dina gam ken kiknaf avos.
No, basin
Basin is a broom.
Yeah. This is a brush.
Bosh.
Yeah. If you have a brush with soft bristles, it's the same halacha. That the Be'er Halacha says, once you're dealing with brushes, the Chavetz Chaim was very concerned. I guess in those days they were common with brushes and brooms, where it was mamish a psik reisha that by using them the bristles are going to break. By us, I think this is very, very not common. But by them, apparently, it was very common that they had brushes where it would break. So he's very worried. He says, "Ain't kedai l'akol bazeh ela b'merutzif." Okay. We'll have to stop here. All right, we're almost finished.